Eunice's knees almost gave way, not because the office was cold, not because the new CEO's office was too big, or too quiet, or too expensive looking. No, it was because the woman sitting behind the wide glass desk was the same woman she slapped that morning on the road, same dark skin, same tired eyes, same small scar near the corner of her lip, same grey hair, only now it was neatly packed back, like someone who had time and hands to care for it. Eunice's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The personal assistant, a neat young man in a fitted suit, stood beside the door and said politely, "You can go in, Ma. The CEO is waiting." Eunice walked in like she was walking into a dream she couldn't wake from. The office smelled like clean air and soft perfume. It had a view of Lagos, cars moving like tiny ants far below, the sea line shining faintly in the distance. The kind of office people took pictures of when they got promoted. But Eunice couldn't see any of that. All she could see was the woman's face, the old beggar's face, only she wasn't begging now. She was the one being greeted with respect. She was the one sitting tall in a CEO chair. Eunice's handbag slipped a little from her elbow. Her fingers shook as she adjusted it quickly, pretending she was fine. But she wasn't fine. Her mind was screaming, "No, no, this is not possible." The woman looked up slowly, like she had all the time in the world. Her eyes rested on Eunice the way a calm ocean rests on a shore, quiet, deep, and not in a rush. Then she spoke, voice low and steady. "Good afternoon, Eunice eBay." Hearing her full name like that made Eunice's stomach twist. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because in that second, her memory dragged her back to the dusty, untarred road, back to the slap, back to the crowd's shocked faces, back to that one small moment that now felt like it was about to swallow her whole. The woman's gaze did not move. It didn't shake. It didn't beg. It didn't plead. It just watched her. And somehow, that was worse. Eunice swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry like sand. I, she started. The woman leaned back slightly in her chair. The leather didn't make any sound. Everything in that office was soft. Even silence sounded expensive. "You can sit," the woman said, pointing to a chair in front of the desk. Eunice didn't sit. Her legs refused. And then it happened. Eunice fell to her knees, not slowly, not with pride. She dropped like somebody pushed her from behind. Tears jumped into her eyes before she even understood it. "I'm sorry," she cried out. "I'm so sorry. Please, please forgive me." Her voice broke in the middle. She hated how loud it sounded in that quiet office. She hated that the assistant was still standing there, watching. She hated that her whole life suddenly felt like it was being judged in one room. The woman, Amarachi, did not shout. She didn't even raise her voice. She simply stared at Eunice for a long time, like she was looking at someone she had known in another life. Then she said softly, "Stand up, Eunice." Eunice shook her head, crying harder. "I didn't know it was you. I swear I didn't know. I thought you were just—" She stopped quickly, because even saying it sounded ugly. Just what? Just a beggar. Just an old woman. Just nothing. Amarachi's eyes narrowed a little, not with anger, with something else. Disappointment. The kind that sinks into your bones. Outside the glass walls, Lagos was still moving. Phones were ringing somewhere. People were typing. Printers were printing. The world didn't stop, but Eunice's world had stopped. And it was only the beginning. The morning started like many mornings in Lagos. Too fast, too noisy, too hot, even though the sun was still rising. Eunice rushed out of the small flat she rented in Yaba, adjusting her corporate blouse and tugging at her skirt so it would sit properly. She liked looking sharp. She believed looking sharp meant you were going somewhere in life. Her hair was in a neat bun, the kind that said, "I'm serious." She held her expensive leather handbag like a shield. As she locked her door, her neighbor, Auntie Kemi, called out from the corridor, "Eunice, good morning, oh." Eunice forced a smile. "Good morning, Ma." Auntie Kemi's eyes went to Eunice's face. "You look like somebody chasing bus and chasing destiny together." Eunice gave a small laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I can't be late today," she said. "They said new CEO is resuming. Everybody must be on their best behavior." Auntie Kemi nodded. God will help you. Just have patience with people today. Eunice didn't answer that part. She simply hurried down the stairs. Patience was a word people used when they didn't understand pressure. Eunice understood pressure. Her job at Andertech, the Lagos branch, was not safe. She could feel it. Rumors had been flying for weeks, restructuring, new leadership, staff cuts, fresh eyes. And Eunice had something she didn't tell anyone. She had debt. Not small debt, the kind that woke you up at night, the kind that made your chest tight when your phone rang and the number was unknown. So that morning, Eunice didn't have room for softness. She didn't have room for mistakes. She didn't have room for sorry. She needed everything to go right. She got outside, joined the street flow, and walked toward the bus stop. The road near the junction was still untarred, brown sand, loose stones, potholes that held yesterday's rain like dirty soup. Kiki drivers shouted, hawkers pushed through traffic with trays on their heads. A man selling bread yelled, "Agege bread, hot, hot." Eunice checked her wristwatch. Time was running. She took a deep breath, walking. Faster, then she heard a thin voice behind her. "Ah, my daughter. Please." Eunice kept walking. The voice came again, closer. "My daughter, help me. Anything. Just to buy food." Eunice didn't turn. She had heard those words too many times. And in her mind, people always begged at the wrong time. When you were late, when you were stressed, when you were already carrying your own problems like heavy water on your head. But then the old woman stepped in front of her, right there, blocking her. Eunice almost collided with her and stopped sharply. The woman was about 70, maybe older. Dark-skinned. Her blue Ankara wrapper looked tattered at the edges. Her blouse was faded. Her grey hair was scattered around her face like it had been fighting the wind all night. Her eyes were wet. Not dramatic wet. Real wet. The kind that happens when hunger has been your friend for too long. She stretched out one trembling hand. "My daughter, please, help me, even." Small. Eunice looked around. People were passing. Some glanced, most didn't. Eunice felt heat rise to her face, not pity heat. Anger heat. Why here? Why now? Why me? The old woman's hand came slightly closer, not touching, just reaching. Eunice stepped back like the hand carried dirt, and then her mouth opened, and the words fell out sharp, fast, and cruel, like she had been storing them. "You, this lazy old woman," Eunice snapped. "If you trained your children, they would be feeding you instead of you being a nuisance on the street this morning." The old woman blinked. People slowed down. A woman with a baby on her back stopped walking. Two young women buying a car turned to look. One man near a wheelbarrow paused, his mouth half open. The old woman's lips trembled. "My daughter, Eunice didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to see tears. She didn't want to feel anything. So she raised her hand, and she slapped the old woman. It wasn't the loudest slap in Lagos history, but it was loud enough, because it wasn't just skin meeting skin, it was pride meeting weakness. It was youth meeting old age. It was power meeting hunger. The old woman stumbled, held her cheek, and for a second it looked like she might fall. Tears rolled down her face slowly. Not like a movie, like real life. The street went silent in a strange way, still noisy but quiet around that moment. A woman shouted, "Ah, why now? Why will you slap Mama like that?" Another woman put both hands on her head. "Jesus, what is this?" A man murmured. "This is wickedness." Eunice's chest rose and fell quickly. She felt embarrassed now, embarrassed that people were watching her like she was a bad person. So she did what some people do when they are wrong. She became louder. "Did I ask you people to gather?" she barked. "Everybody should mind their business." The old woman didn't argue. She didn't insult Eunice back. She didn't curse her. That was the part that should have scared Eunice, but it didn't. Amarachi simply wiped her tears with the back of her hand and stepped away from the road quietly. She turned once, looked at Eunice for a second, then lowered her eyes like she was carrying something heavy inside her chest. And she walked away into the crowd, just like that. No fight, no drama, only silence. Eunice adjusted her handbag, lifted her chin, and walked off too. But as she walked, her heart beat too fast, not because she felt guilty. Not yet. Because something about the old woman's eyes didn't look like normal begging eyes. It looked like eyes that had known comfort before, eyes that had lost it, or maybe eyes that still had it, hidden. Eunice shook her head quickly. Stop thinking nonsense. You're late. She hopped into a Danfo heading toward Victoria Island. Inside the bus, a conductor shouted, Vi, CMS, enter with your change. Eunice sat near the window trying to fix her breathing. The city moved around her, but her mind kept replaying the slap. The old woman's cheek, the tears, the shocked faces. She told herself she deserved it for blocking me. She should go and meet her children. Still, her palm felt hot, like it remembered. By afternoon, Eunice was at the office, typing like her life depended on it. Because maybe it did. The office was extra tense that day. People were smiling too much, laughing too loudly, acting like they weren't scared. Every few minutes, someone whispered, "Have you seen the new CEO?" Somebody said, "I heard she's strict." Another person said, "I heard she came from abroad." Then someone else said, "I heard she's old but sharp." Eunice kept her eyes on her screen. She didn't join the gossip. She just wanted to survive. Around 1:40 p.m., her phone buzzed with an internal message. PA office. Eunice eBay, report to the CEO's office immediately. Eunice stared at the message. Her stomach dropped. The CEO. Me? Why? She checked if she made any mistake in the morning report. She quickly looked at her sent emails. Everything looked fine. Her colleague beside her, Tola, leaned in. CEO called you. You better be careful, oh. Eunice forced a smile. It's probably nothing. But her hands were cold as she stood up. She smoothed her skirt, adjusted her blouse, picked up her handbag like it could protect her from anything. As she walked, the hallway felt longer than usual. The CEO's door was at the end, guarded by that calm personal assistant with a clean haircut and serious eyes. He looked up. "Miss Eunice?" "Yes," Eunice said, voice polite. "The CEO is ready for you," he replied. "Go in." Eunice nodded, pushed the door open and stepped inside, and that was when the world flipped. Because behind that glass desk was Amarachi, the old woman from the road. The same Amarachi Eunice, slapped, now dressed in a simple but very expensive outfit, sitting like someone born for that chair. Eunice froze, her breath caught, her vision blurred for a second, and Amarachi's calm voice cut through the silence. "Good afternoon, Eunice eBay." Eunice's handbag slipped, her knees gave way. She dropped to the floor, and her cry filled the office. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me." Amarachi's eyes didn't blink, and the personal assistant quietly closed the door behind Eunice, leaving them inside together, alone. Amarachi leaned forward slightly and said, in a voice so soft it was scary, "Stand up. Let's talk about the kind of person you are, when you think nobody important is watching." Eunice tried to stand, still shaking, still crying. But before she could even wipe her tears, Amarachi pressed a button on her desk. A red light blinked, and the personal assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Yes, ma?" Amarachi didn't look away from Eunice as she said, "Bring the file." Eunice's heart jumped. "What file?" she whispered. Amarachi's eyes were steady, almost sad. "The file that explains," she said slowly, "why you met me this morning, and why your life is about to change today." Eunice's tears stopped for 1 second. Because fear took over, and the door handle turned. The assistant was coming back in, with something in his hand, something that looked like a brown envelope, the same kind of envelope Eunice had seen on the street. Eunice's mouth went dry, and Amarachi finally asked the question that made Eunice's blood run cold. "Eunice, do you know who I really was?" Eunice stared at the brown envelope like it was breathing. The personal assistant placed it gently on the glass table and stepped back. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His silence felt heavier than shouting. Amarachi rested one hand on the envelope. "Stand up," she said again, calm but firm. Eunice struggled to her feet, her knees weak. She wiped her tears with the back of her palm, smearing her makeup. Her chest rose and fell too fast. She felt small, smaller than she had ever felt in her life. Amarachi watched her quietly. "You are wondering how I moved from the road you slapped me on." To this office, Amarachi said. Isn't that so? Eunice nodded quickly. Yes, Ma. Please. I didn't know. If I knew, Amarachi raised one finger. That sentence, she said softly, is the problem. Eunice froze. If you knew, Amarachi continued, you would not have slapped me. If you knew, you would have spoken gently. If you knew, you would have shown respect. She paused. So tell me, Eunice, what about the people you don't know? The question hit Eunice harder than the slap she gave that morning. Her mouth opened, then closed again. No answer came out. Amarachi sighed, not tired, not angry, just sad. I will tell you who I am, she said. But before that, I want you to open that envelope. Her hand moved away. Eunice hesitated. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. The paper felt thick. Expensive, not like the rough envelopes hawkers used. She opened it slowly. Inside were documents, official documents. At the top of the first page, bold and clear, were words that made her eyes widen. Amarachi Okafor, Group Chief Executive Officer, Andatech Holdings, West Africa. Eunice gasped. Her head spun. The letters blurred. This must be a mistake, she whispered. Amarachi shook her head slightly. It is not. She stood up from her chair. And something changed in the room, not the furniture, not the air, the power. Amarachi walked slowly around the desk, her shoes barely making sound on the carpet. She stopped in front of Eunice, close enough that Eunice could see the faint lines on her face. Lines that came from living, not begging. I am the founder of Andatech, Amarachi said. I stepped down years ago. I handed control to men who later forgot why the company was built. This week, I returned. Quietly. Eunice swallowed. I spent the last 3 months walking through Lagos without announcing myself, Amarachi continued. I wanted to see how people treat those they think have nothing. She looked directly into Eunice's eyes. And this morning, I met you. The room felt tight. Too tight. Eunice's legs shook again. Ma, I was stressed. I have problems. Debt, pressure. I didn't mean… Amarachi raised her hand gently. Everybody has problems, she said. But not everybody uses their problems to crush others. Silence stretched between them. Then Amarachi turned and walked back to her chair. Sit, she said. Eunice obeyed this time, lowering herself carefully into the chair opposite the desk. Her mind raced. This can't be real. This can't be how my life ends. Amarachi opened the envelope again and pulled out another paper. Eunice Ibe, she read aloud, 26 years old, junior administrative officer, employed 2 years, 4 months ago, good performance record, but also… She paused. Eunice's heart beat loudly in her ears. Multiple complaints about attitude, Amarachi finished. Sharp words. Public embarrassment of colleagues, disrespect toward cleaners, security staff. Eunice's eyes dropped to the floor. She remembered now. The cleaner she snapped at for mopping near her desk, the security man she ignored when he greeted her, the intern she shouted at for misplacing a file. They all came back, one by one. I didn't know people noticed, Eunice murmured. Amarachi's voice softened. People always notice. They just don't always speak. Amarachi folded the file. This morning was not the first time you were cruel, she said. It was only the first time your cruelty came back to you so quickly. Eunice broke down. Again, I'm sorry, she cried. Please give me one chance, just one. I will change. I promise. Her shoulders shook. Her voice cracked. She meant it. For a moment, Amarachi looked like she was thinking. For one small moment, hope entered Eunice's heart. Then Amarachi spoke. Eunice, apologies don't erase actions. They only explain regret. She pressed a button on her desk. Yes, Ma. The PA responded through the intercom. Prepare a termination letter, Amarachi said calmly. Effective immediately. Eunice's head snapped up. No, no, please, she cried, standing up. Ma, don't do this. My mother depends on me. I have no father. I pay rent. Amarachi stood too. Her voice was quiet. Too quiet. And that old woman you slapped, she said, who do you think depends on her? Eunice froze. Amarachi continued, I buried 2 children. I raised others who are not even mine. I have slept hungry before. I have begged before. I survived because someone showed me kindness when I least deserved it. She stepped closer. You chose arrogance instead. Tears streamed freely now. I won't fight this decision, Amarachi said, but I will fight the culture that produced it. She gestured toward the door. You may go. Eunice stood there, shaking, stunned. Just like that, 2 years of work, gone. One slap, one morning. She picked up her handbag slowly. Her feet felt heavy as she walked toward the door. Before she opened it, she turned back. Amarachi met her eyes. For a second, Eunice thought she saw pain there. But Amarachi only said one thing. Let today teach you what pride hides. Eunice nodded weakly and walked out. The sun outside was harsh, too bright, too normal. People were laughing, phones rang, life continued. But Eunice felt like she was underwater. She walked past her desk, past Tola's shocked face. You're leaving, Tola whispered. Eunice nodded, unable to speak. She took the elevator down. Each floor passing felt like something dropping inside her chest. When she stepped outside the building, the noise of Victoria Island hit her. Horns, voices, engines. Her phone rang. She ignored it. She crossed the road slowly, not looking left, not looking right. Her mind replayed Amarachi's words. What pride hides? A horn blared. Someone shouted, "Hey, watch out!" Eunice turned her head, and everything went white. A loud crash. People screamed. A body lay on the road. Blood spread slowly. A car sped away without stopping. And somewhere far away, in a quiet office with glass walls, Amarachi suddenly pressed her hand to her chest. Because something felt wrong. Very wrong. Eunice never heard the second horn. She heard the first one, sharp, angry, close. But her mind was too full to understand what it meant. Her head was still in that glass office, still on her knees, still hearing the word terminated echo like a drum. So when she stepped forward, her foot landed on the edge of the road instead of the pavement. And the road did not wait. There was a blur, a scream, a hard sound, metal meeting flesh. Then silence. Not the peaceful kind, the broken kind. People gathered fast. Lagos people always gather fast. A woman screamed, "Jesus, they've killed somebody." A man shouted, "That car didn't stop. Did anybody see the plate number?" Another voice said, "She just crossed without looking." Eunice lay on the road, her body twisted at an angle that didn't look right. One shoe had flown off. Her handbag lay open nearby, its contents spilled. Lip gloss, keys, office ID card. Her eyes were half open, not blinking. Blood ran slowly from the side of her head, dark against the hot road. "Is she breathing?" someone asked. A young man knelt and placed his fingers on her neck. He shook his head, then checked again. "I think she's still alive," he said, "but barely." "Call. Ambulance," a woman cried. Another man scoffed. "Ambulance in this Lagos. Better carry her." 2 men carefully lifted Eunice. Her body felt light, too light. As they carried her toward a passing bus, her phone fell from her hand and slid across the road, stopping near the gutter. The screen was still on. One missed call. Mum. At the office, Amarachi dropped her pen. It wasn't dramatic. It just slipped from her fingers and hit the desk softly. Her chest tightened suddenly, like something invisible squeezed her heart. She pressed her palm flat against her chest. The personal assistant looked up immediately. "Ma, are you okay?" Amarachi nodded slowly. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. Something felt off. Wrong. She stood up and walked toward the glass window, looking down at the busy road far below. Cars moved, people crossed, life rushed. Her mind drifted, uninvited, back to Eunice's face. The fear, the tears. The way she said, "My mother depends on me." Amarachi closed her eyes briefly. No, she told herself, this is not guilt, this is consequence. Still, her chest hurt. "Clear my next meeting," Amarachi said quietly. "Yes, Ma." Amarachi returned to her chair, but she couldn't focus. The file in front of her remained untouched. She didn't know why. She just knew something had happened. The hospital, they rushed Eunice to the nearest general hospital. The emergency room smelled of antiseptic and sweat. Nurses moved quickly. A doctor shouted instructions. BP is dropping. Get oxygen. She's not responding. They placed Eunice on a stretcher. Her eyes fluttered. For a second, just one, her lips moved. No sound came out, but in her mind images rushed in like floodwater. Her mother's face, their small sitting room, her first day at work, the slap, the road. Tears slipped from the corner of her eyes and disappeared into her hair. Pulse is weak, the doctor said. They worked, they tried, but sometimes trying is not enough. The doctor stepped back slowly. He looked at the clock. Then he looked at the nurse. Time of death, he said quietly. The nurse wrote it down, just like that. Eunice eBay, 26 years old, gone. Eunice's mother, Mama Eunice, was washing clothes when her phone rang. She wiped her hands on her wrapper and answered cheerfully. Hello, Eunice? You don't call this early? There was a pause. Her smile faded. Yes, this is her mother. She listened. Her knees weakened. What do you mean accident? She whispered. The basin slipped from her hands and water spilled across the floor. No, my daughter just went to work this morning. Her voice broke. The phone fell. Mama Eunice collapsed onto the wet floor, crying out loud. My child, Eunice. Neighbors rushed in. What happened? She's dead, Mama Eunice wailed. My only child is dead. The news spreads. By evening, the news was everywhere. Not on TV, on WhatsApp, on whispered conversations. Did you hear about that girl hit by a car near Andertech? They said she just lost her job today. Ah, life is wicked. Somebody shared a voice note. Someone shared a picture. Someone else shook their head and typed, "Be careful how you live." In her quiet office, Amarachi received the message too. She stared at the phone, read it again, and again. Then she stood up so fast, her chair moved backward. Find out, she said to the PA, voice suddenly tight. Find out who was involved in that accident near the office today. The PA hesitated. Ma? Now, Amarachi said. Minutes passed, then the PA returned. His face was different. Ma, it was Eunice. The room went silent. Amarachi sat down slowly. Her hands trembled for the first time. No, she said softly. No. She was pronounced dead on arrival, the PA added gently. Amarachi covered her mouth with her hand. The office felt too big. Too empty. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She remembered Eunice's words again. My mother depends on me. Tears filled Amarachi's eyes, not tears of guilt, tears of loss, of waste, of a lesson that came too late. Eunice was buried the next day. No long planning, no big ceremony, just tears. The small compound filled with mourners. Women cried, men shook their heads quietly. Mama Eunice sat on the ground, rocking back and forth, her eyes red and swollen. My daughter went to work, she cried. She never came back. The coffin was lowered. The earth covered it. And that was it. A life wrapped up in one afternoon. As people began to leave, a black car stopped at the gate. Heads turned. The car door opened. An elderly woman stepped out, dressed simply, her face covered partially with a scarf. It was Amarachi. She walked slowly toward Mama Eunice. People whispered, Who is that? She looks important. Amarachi knelt in front of Mama Eunice. I am sorry, she said softly. I am deeply sorry. Mama Eunice looked at her with tired eyes. Did you know my daughter? Amarachi nodded. Yes, I did. She reached into her bag and brought out an envelope. Please accept this, she said. It is Eunice's 1-year full salary. Mama Eunice stared at the envelope, confused. Why? She asked. Amarachi's voice broke. Because I met her too late. Tears rolled down Amarachi's face. I never wanted it to end like this. Mama Eunice held the envelope, then began to cry again. Amarachi stayed there for a long time, silent, heavy. That night, Amarachi sat alone in her house. Sleep did not come. Eunice's face kept returning, the slap, the tears, the road. Amarachi stood up suddenly. She knew something now, something important. This story cannot end here, she whispered to herself. And for the first time since Eunice's death, Amarachi made a decision that would shake the company and expose a truth nobody expected. What was Amarachi about to do with Eunice's story, and who else would it affect? Amarachi did not sleep that night. She sat in the dark living room of her Ikoyi home, the city lights blinking outside like distant stars. The house was large, but it felt empty, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your thoughts loud. Eunice's face would not leave her mind. Not the face in the office, the face on the road, the face after the slap. Amarachi closed her eyes and breathed in slowly. I wanted to teach, she whispered to herself, not to destroy. But life had already taken its turn. By morning, Amarachi arrived at the office earlier than usual. The building was still waking up, cleaners moving quietly, security men standing straighter when they saw her. She went straight to the conference room. Call an emergency staff meeting, she told her PA. All departments, no excuses. Within an hour the room was full, faces tense. Curious, afraid. People had heard the news, people always heard the news. Amarachi stood at the front, her hands resting lightly on the table. I want to talk about Eunice Ibe, she began. A murmur spread through the room. Some heads dropped, some eyes widened. She worked here, Amarachi continued. She died yesterday, and before she died, she met me. Silence. Heavy silence. I am not here to shame her, Amarachi said. She cannot defend herself. That would be unfair. She paused. But I am here to say this. The culture of arrogance in this company will end today. People shifted in their seats. I did not disguise myself to punish, Amarachi said. I disguised myself to learn, to see how power treats weakness. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, and I saw things that frightened me. No one spoke. From today, Amarachi continued, this company will be judged not only by profit, but by character. She announced changes, mandatory ethics reviews, anonymous reporting. Leadership training focused on empathy. Consequences, real ones, not punishment, correction. As the meeting ended, people walked out quietly, thoughtfully. Some looked shaken, some looked ashamed, and some looked afraid, not of losing their jobs, but of being seen clearly for the first time. Later that day, Amarachi sat alone again in her office. She opened a small notebook and wrote one line. Eunice was not evil, she was careless with power. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? A soft voice replied, Good afternoon, Ma. This is Sister Agnes from the General Hospital. We found something in Eunice's belongings. A note. It has your name. Amarachi's heart skipped. A note? She asked. Yes, the voice said. We think you should see it. Amarachi stood up slowly. Because some stories do not end when the person dies. They only begin to speak louder. Amarachi drove to the hospital herself. No siren, no escort. Just silence and the steady sound of the road. In a small office beside the emergency ward, a nurse handed her a transparent bag. Inside were Eunice's phone, her ID card, and a folded piece of paper, creased, worn, like it had been opened many times. This was in her handbag, the nurse said softly. We thought it was personal. But your name was written on it. Amarachi nodded and opened the note. The handwriting was hurried, uneven. It read, If you are reading this, it means I didn't get another chance. I'm sorry, I didn't grow up cruel, I just became hard because I was afraid of falling. I thought strength meant being sharp. I was wrong. Please, take care of my mother. Amarachi closed her eyes. For a long moment, she did not speak. Then she folded the note carefully and placed it back in the bag. I will, she said. 2 weeks later, Amarachi stood before the entire company again. This time, there was no tension, only attention. Eunice made a mistake, Amarachi said, but she also carried fear, pressure, and pride she did not understand. She paused. That combination is dangerous. She announced a foundation in Eunice's name, focused on character training for young professionals. Not lectures, not punishment, real guidance, real mentoring. She also announced something else. Mama Eunice would receive monthly support for the rest of her life. Not as charity. As responsibility, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Amarachi visited Mama Eunice again. They sat together in the small sitting room. Mama Eunice held Amarachi's hand. "My daughter was not wicked," she said quietly. "She just forgot herself." Amarachi nodded. "Many people do." They sat in silence, not heavy silence, healing silence. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.